You touched on this a little bit, but if I could kindly ask you to elaborate a little more. In your opinion, was PLIP worth it? And what have the socio-economic implications been on returnee families and groups?
I have no doubt in my mind that PLIP was essential, and if it was in my power, I would have liked to suggest that it should also be implemented in other countries in the region, especially Croatia. I think it should also be implemented in other situations like this elsewhere in the world. There are people who came here actually from some other refugee situations to study the program. So this was, I don't want to take too much credit as one of the organizations participating in the PLIP and just presenting a glory, because the return has been a difficult process in Bosnia. Returns have been painful, and returns through Annex 7, I always say that UNHCR was given a task to recreate a pre-1992 demographic map of Bosnia. That was too ambitious, and we have not been able to achieve that objective. We can say that over 1 million people have exercised their right to return. That is a big number, despite the fact that we could not create the pre-92 demographic map of Bosnia. Still, over 1 million people exercising the right of return is a huge number. That could not have happened without PLIP. So PLIP was, if you want to count few jewels in the crown of the international community, PLIP is one of them.
Is the process over?
The process is not over. PLIP is over, more or less. Over 90% of the cases have been resolved. And there were some very difficult and complicated cases which took longer time. But the process of resolving the displacement issue is not over. In our view, it will only be over when we have found the solutions for the remaining 113,000 displaced persons in the country, and solutions for people who are the most vulnerable, and most of them live in extremely appalling conditions in almost 155 collective centers throughout the country.
In regards to the OSCE, can you tell me how has the OSCE contributed to the protection of human rights in Bosnia?
OSCE, normally we work a lot in many other countries with other United Nations agencies, because we are a United Nations agency. When we were working here during the war, we were more or less the only UN agency operating. There were others also, but in terms of size and operation. And we were working very closely with UNPROFOR at the time. But following the war, OSCE came in, and OSCE's work to us is more known from the human rights angle. And the return process in this country is directly linked to human rights. It is linked to discrimination, whether it's discrimination for social rights, for economic rights, for persecution, fear of persecution. So all that was very, very linked to human rights, and human rights was one of the pillars of the OSCE in many years after the end of the war. So and then OSCE also had a very large field presence. So the work that we did together with OSCE, I always say, all this what I just said is to say that as far as UNHCR is concerned, we consider OSCE as one of our closest partners in Bosnia, more than any other agency. And I think together with OHR, OSCE, UNHCR, and of course with the support of S4 and military forces and police forces. This was one of the best examples of cooperation. There was no turf battle between OSCE and UNHCR. It was all about work, and the objectives were the same. So the division of work was also done very in an excellent manner. I'm a very positive advocate of OSCE and UNHCR partnership. I worked in Georgia before coming here. I was a UNHCR representative there. We also had an excellent cooperation with OSCE there. So if you ask me the fundamental reason for that, it is because UNHCR is a human rights-based organization. Refugee law is human rights-based. All our protection work is human rights-based. And you did a lot of work in human rights monitoring, and some of the areas that OSCE work, they are beyond our mandate. And you have a larger mandate when it comes to human rights than UNHCR, because we are focused largely on refugees, IDPs, or stateless people. But you have a much larger mandate in terms of human rights. So you contributed a lot, and we have a lot of respect for the work that you did in general in human rights area, and in particular for the return process. And without the support of OSCE, there are several initiatives which could not have been successful.
One last question for today, I promise. If you could describe OSCE in Bosnia in one word, what would that word be for you?
Human rights.
I thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.